Okay, so I have this picture pulled up for a reason because I've been wanting to talk about this for a couple of days now, ever since I found that article where they were talking about stocks going down for movie theaters. Because it's really something you wouldn't have thought about, right? Because this was a big year for movies. Well, it was a big year for Disney. A big year for Disney as they controlled, like, honestly, 8 out of the top 10. It's really 7 out of the top 10 as far as box office goes. And that's because Spider-Man is one of the top 10. But if you know how that works, Sony got all the money from that. Technically, you could say 8, but I'm going to go ahead and say 7. That's still a lot. That's a ton. So Disney has pretty much monopolized everything, but they're not really fully to blame for why ticket sales are going down. There's actually a lot of reasons for why theaters probably aren't going to be around after about 10 years. I think in a couple of years, you'll see one of the big chains like an AMC declare bankruptcy. I don't think it's that far off because look at this year. So I don't think we have big movies coming out for 2020. Nothing like we had for 2019. We had a lot of big hits for 2019. And I just don't see that replicating considering the release list. So I want to take a look at some reports that have come out here. Like this one, theater chain stocks hammered since debut of Cat's Star Wars. Now, this is what really got me interested in this subject because, like I said in my other video, this was one of the last things I saw coming when I looked at this year as far as, movies in review and how much, money a lot of these movies brought in. But then you got to factor in, what's going on the rest of the time. That's the problem. There's also other problems like streaming. And there's also the get woke, go broke factor, which I do believe is a factor. They, of course, are not going to talk about that at all because that's never the problem, It destroys entire industries like comic books. That's pretty much what's ruined them in a lot of cases because no one wants to pay $4 for lectures. Now, it's only just recently over the past couple of years gotten really bad with Hollywood, and it's not the only factor, to be fair, because not every movie is woke. There's a few of them that are. It's not the main reason why movie theaters are in trouble. Take movies like Terminator Dark Fate. If you remember, there was a string of box office busts around that time because right after Terminator Dark Fate, Charlie's Angels came out. Those were 2 big box office busts. It's bad for Hollywood, and it's also bad for movie theaters because, if it wasn't for Joker, what else are people going to see? Those are the big movies that you need to get through to the next Avengers. And when you have bad performing movies like that, the theaters don't get any business. They need people to come in there and buy their super expensive snacks. And if there's no reason to do that, they can't pay the rent. So I want to stress it's not just get woke, go broke. That's not the only factor here. Is it a contributing factor? Yes. But a lot of it has to do with creativity. The people in Hollywood, all of them are infected with this derangement syndrome. Everyone's creatively bankrupt right now. That's one of the biggest things. Movies are being affected by this. And a lot of the experimental movies, they don't make it to the theaters. Now, they're on streaming services, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But I wanted to go why all this is bad, why even though they had a good year with movies like Star Wars and Avengers and stuff like that, people still aren't showing up year-round. Ticket sales are going down, and this causes concern. So this article starts off with just that. Concerned about tough comparisons and a potential dividend cut, Bank of America global research analyst Brian Goldberg cut his ratings on the movie theater chain AMC Entertainment to underperform from neutral with a new price target of 7, down from 14. AMC stock was down a penny at 8:11 on Wednesday morning. The company didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Now, this AMC had already gone down before. It was up by like $2 or $3 more, I believe. So just going down a penny, doesn't sound that bad, but it's gone down a few bucks already. They've already had drops. So theaters aren't doing too well. And there's a lot of reasons for that. This article right here is the end of the movie theater nigh. It brings up a lot of good points. First off, the theater talks a lot about expense. It costs a lot of money to go to the movies. In some cases, if you want to take your family, it can be up to $60. It's a lot of money. You can go do something else and probably have a better time than going to see Woke Fate, Terminator Woke Fate or something like that. There's other things to do. Movies are expensive. I don't think this is the major reason because people are going to go out regardless. People want to go do stuff. People want to go to the movies. That's not the biggest reason. This is the biggest reason. So they bring up The Irishman. Now, is this the greatest thing ever made? Probably not. I haven't even watched it yet. I hear it's good. I hear it's really good. It's 3.5 hours long. I'm kind of just, what's the rush? I can watch it when I get to watching it. It's 3.5 hours long. Maybe this weekend I'll finally sit down and watch it. But this is the point I want to make with this movie. So there's a really good quote here. So under the bullet point here, they don't make movies like this anymore for a reason. According to the New York Times, Scorsese usually made his films with Paramount Studios, but they wouldn't do it because of the size of the budget and the kind of movie he wanted to do, which is a movie about the union and organized crime and how it got involved with the UAW. It's actually a very interesting story, but anyway, Netflix was the only company willing to take the risk on the project, a film that moves at a measured pace in its 3.5 hours as it tells a tale of how organized crime was intertwined with the labor movement and government in the United States across the last century. So the big reason here is Hollywood's not willing to risk it, but Netflix will. Netflix just wants to get people on its platform. This is one of the smart things that the streaming services are doing. They're not trying to win out, people coming over with big spectacle and high explosion movies. They're trying to win people over with the mediocre movie or the lower budget drama movie, the rom-com or whatever. They want to get people to come in for those lower level movies that you would have normally went and saw in between Avengers and Star Wars. Well, now those movies are going to Netflix or Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Disney Plus. That's another thing, Disney Plus. So Disney controls a lot of the box office now. 40%, I think, of Hollywood or entertainment is now under Disney. I would have to look that up, but that's not the major point that I want to make here. Disney's even doing that. So if you have been watching a lot of YouTube ads, because on my phone, all the ads come on, you see this Disney Plus Christmas movie about, Santa's kid taking over and his sisters helping him. That would have been a movie that you would have saw in the theaters originally. Now it's on Disney Plus. All of these riskier movies are going to the streaming services now. That's part of the problem. If you want to see a movie that's different, takes a chance or a risk, you're likely going to have to watch that on a streaming service now, which makes all of the movies in the theaters now these big budget kind of just, meh movies, because let's be honest, 4 out of 5 blockbusters aren't that memorable. And that's the real problem with streaming versus movie theaters. It's the fact that the more riskier movies that will probably be, cultural hits, stuff like that, like a Big Lebowski, for example. If Big Lebowski came out today, it would likely come out on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And that's kind of weird, isn't it? We've never really had that happen before. And to be fair, it hasn't really happened yet. But it will happen. I guarantee you it's going to happen eventually. Some movie, is going to end up like a Big Lebowski, some movie that everyone loves over time, and it's going to come out on a streaming service. It's never going to go on to the theaters, and that's kind of a problem in itself. Now, because let me put this point out there. If, let's say, we'll call it the new Big Lebowski, let's say that movie, they decide to put that movie in the theaters and on streaming at the same time, why would I go see it in the theaters? I'm going to just sit at home and watch it. If I was just going to go out with friends, then they just come over and watch it at my place. There's really no need. There's no way that kind of model can coexist. especially when you consider that like a lot of the TVs that you can buy nowadays are in some ways the pictures look better at home than they do at the movie theaters. You have to go to one of those really, really nice, big, giant screen theaters. Like, so Rise of Skywalker, I'll use an example. Let's say that movie was magically good. Let's say it was a great movie, not a garbage one. If that movie came out on a streaming service versus a real IMAX, because you got to remember, there's fake IMAXs. You can look that up yourself. That's a whole interesting subject in itself on these IMAXs that are small. They're just kind of big screens compared to the normal screens that they have at a theater. A real IMAX is humongous. It's a very gigantic screen, and it looks really good. I would probably be interested in going to watch that type of movie on that screen because there's no way I can simulate that experience. You know, I can get a nice cheap. You can get like a 75-inch TV right now for a couple $100. I saw a decent one for like $600, and it had 4K HDR. I mean, that's crazy. The price of a big screen TV is coming down. A decent big screen TV that, you know, you don't have people getting their cell phones out on you. You can have better food. You can, you know, pause it, go to the bathroom. It's just it's a better experience. But, you know, I still like to go out. I still like to do stuff. And that's really what movie theaters are competing for now, to get you to go out of your house and do something. So how do you do that when, you know, you have to get reasons for people to want to go there in between Star Wars and the Avengers? And that's a problem in itself. So there's some responses here on some people that work in Hollywood that have some answers. And I want to go through the ones that I liked. So this one from Dennis Lim says, the takeaway from the New York Times piece, this is a response to an article that's pretty much going over what I'm talking about, is not that movies are dying, it's that Hollywood is in trouble. If Hollywood is struggling, maybe it's time to reframe this tired discourse and remind us all that cinema is about a lot more than Oscar movies and summer tentpoles. I watch hundreds of new films from around the world each year, and I find it hard to be pessimistic about cinema as an art. Maybe a more relevant and less cynical question is to ask how an art form might sustain itself or even thrive while the business around it flounders. And then we got another one that I liked a lot. So this one actually had some answers. So we got Cameron Bailey. There's no mass audience anymore, which is a relief because there never was. Now is a good time to pay more attention to each person watching. What motivates them, what rewards the time they spend with us. Big streaming companies can do that with data. Those of us running festivals or independent cinemas need to use both data and a more personal touch. Then we got Ray Nutt here. Documentaries are a great example of Fathom's business model. So if you don't know who they are, they're a smaller business chain, but here's what they do that's really cool is they bring in documentaries. They bring in older movies. So if you wanted to go see Ghostbusters or something like that, Die Hard, they play those movies there. And they also bring in anime. When Dragon Ball Super Broly dropped in America, I saw it at a Fathom. So they do a little bit of a different model. And by bringing in documentaries and all this stuff, it gives you a reason to go. It's something different. And those aren't available on streaming services either. So they're doing something a little bit different that's kind of working. And I think that that's kind of a good model for them to go by. The nostalgia route, different experiences like anime and these documentaries, that's what these theaters are going to need to do. They need to do something different. Nostalgia helps a lot. Now, like, if I wanted to get out for the night and go do something, hey, you know, it's kind of cool. Let's go see this older movie at the theaters. That's kind of different. That's kind of like an event. I think that that's actually an interesting idea. Because even though I have that movie, it's just like, it's the idea of doing it, going to see it, to replicating that experience. But long term, I don't know if theaters survive. Kind of like comic shops. I think movie theaters are likely on their way out eventually. Now, I think some will survive. I think the ones that do the older movies, the anime, the documentaries, they'll survive. But you won't see them all over the place. You won't see two in a town anymore. You might have to drive 30 to 40 minutes to go see a movie. They're going to whittle down. Now, The streaming wars might stop that, but with pirating, I don't know. Because it's like, well, I don't have HBO Max, but if I really want to watch this, I could just pirate it. I bet you Mandalorian on Disney Plus was probably the most pirated series of the year. More than likely, I bet you it's going to be the top pirated show. So there's ways around that stuff. So I just don't know. Streaming, I think, is going to put movie theaters out of business. And, with Hollywood pumping out nothing but crap most of the time for movie theaters, that's going to just accelerate it. I think some will stick around, but, it's just crazy to think about, and this is what kind of got me thinking about this. When you have big movies like Avengers is the top movie of all time as far as box office now, and then you have, Skywalker and all these other big movies that came out this year, still wasn't enough. Theater stocks still went down, and it's just going to get worse. I think this year is going to be really bad, really bad. So I think movie theaters are definitely on their way out. I think in 10 years, this model's almost going to be completely gone. Probably, I would say more a safe bet is within 15. Anyway, that's pretty much it. What are your thoughts on this? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think that we can save the movie theater? How do we do that? What do you guys think? What's your take on all this? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Also, let's get some likes on this video. Remember, likes and comments are what drive videos in the algorithm, especially a video like this that doesn't really have anything, trending that's going on for it. So that kind of stuff definitely helps. Also, make sure you're still subscribed. Something weird going on as usual, so double check. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you're new, consider helping the channel and subscribing. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out. Also, take a moment. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. There's something going on right now, and they've been unsubscribing people. So just take a second and double check on that, and subscribe if you're new.